Okay, now that we understand what is friction and two important aspects of friction are that friction is something that impedes the motion of something. It's a force that naturally gets produced in anything that is in contact with another thing, and you observe the motion of that thing to actually come to a stop. And the other thing is that we observe a production of heat energy in that thing. So that is the fundamental information that you need to have about friction. But the more detail or abstract concept of friction, and that how everything actually is able to produce this force of friction in itself while it is in contact with another thing is a whole different thing. And you don't necessarily have to know why friction is produced and what actually causes friction, because that is outside the scope of your syllabus. And this video is basically for those who are literally interested and curious about physics and the science that lies behind the concept of friction. So let me get started. So first of all, we understand that friction is produced whenever two things are in contact with each other. So let's consider a case of a ball or an object. Let's actually this time make a cubical or rectangular object, right? So sorry. So I can now draw a level ground that this thing is actually sliding on, right? So this is the ground. Okay, I can actually try to draw a exactly horizontal ground like this, and then I can just draw an object that is lying on the ground, right? And we push that object with a certain force, and the object starts to move in this direction, right? And we come to we observe that the object actually comes to a stop at this point. So it starts at point A and finishes at point B, and we observe that we applied some force that actually generated an acceleration, and the velocity actually increased from 0 meters per second, which was the initial velocity of that thing, and it increased to, let's say, uh, 3 meters per second, and then decrease back to 0 meters per second, right? So we're sure that, and we're certain that this force that we applied, the net external force that we applied to it, actually caused that acceleration that actually caused the velocity of this box to increase from 0 meters per second to 3 meters per second. But then what is that force that actually caused the velocity to decrease back to 0 meters per second? There has to be a force, and we have observed and we have learned that this is the force of friction that acts in the opposite direction, uh, that actually makes the object to come to a stop, right? So my question is, okay, we know that this is the force that we applied. We are sure that we applied because we actually did apply it ourselves, and we are in no doubt about that. But who actually created this force? We are not sure if it was us, because we actually never actually paid any attention to this force, or uh, we are not even sure that it was the box who actually decided to apply this force, or it was the ground, or it was the mutual understanding of box and ground that actually decided to create this force because they knew that they had to come to a stop. So what is the exact mechanism or phenomena that is going on between the two surfaces that actually cause the creation of this force? So we'll be actually putting some light on that in this video. So let me zoom this thing in. This box is like this, for example, and the ground surface is, let's say, this, right? So I'm making a little bit gap in between them, but you can assume there to be no gap at all. And now I'm making some molecules, very magnified molecules. So these are the molecules or top surface molecules of the ground, and I can just add another layer, for example, and I can quickly add just another layer of molecules, right? And then I can make some molecules for the box, right? So these are the molecules of the box. So these are the molecules of the box, and in the green are the molecules of the ground, right? So this is the box, and this is the ground, right? So let's actually see what is going on. We know that the box is actually sliding forward. The box is actually going in this direction, and ground is staying at rest. So these molecules of the ground, they are in a forward motion. So they are in contact with the molecules of the ground, and they are actually colliding because they are in contact with the ground. So they are actually in a collision. And we know that whenever two things collide, they actually get some kinetic energy, and because of the collision. And we understand what kinetic energy is. Kinetic energy is the energy possessed by a body due to its velocity or due to its motion. So we know that when these molecules, although they are going forward, but when they collide with the molecules of the ground, they actually bounce back and forth, right? So they are actually bouncing back and forth because they are in constant contact with the molecules of the ground. So that is actually going to increase the increase the kinetic energy of the molecules right here. But as the kinetic energy of of these molecules starts to increase, uh, the state of these molecules becomes pretty excited. They now are more excited than they were before, and we understand everything in this universe wants to attain stability. We know that everything in this world wants to attain stability, and that is one of the laws of thermodynamics that you don't need to actually go into deep detail, but you need to understand everything in this world wants to attain stability. And you can think of it this way: whenever you, for example, spray a perfume at one corner of your room, it just disperses and it diffuses to every point of the room, and it just evenly, unless it is evenly distributed to every single point of the room, it will keep diffusing unless an equilibrium is established, right? So why does that happen? Because the perfume molecules that are just sprayed are more energetic than the rest of the room, and they collide with each other, and then they want to go as far away from each other so that they don't have to collide anymore. So they try their best to move away from each other so that they don't have to actually collide with one another anymore, because collision will create a lot of kinetic energy, and things don't want to be staying at a high energy state. They want to be at a low energy state, so they attain stability. That is a rule or a law of the physics that the whole universe is following, right? So these molecules actually have a high kinetic energy due to collision or contact with the surface molecules of the ground. So now they have a high kinetic energy. Now they want to lose that kinetic energy, and immediately the molecules decide to turn that kinetic energy into heat energy, right? So into heat energy. They want to turn that or convert that kinetic energy into heat energy and dissipate it into the environment. Because if energy stays within this, the layers of the molecules of the box, then they will continue to stay at an excited state, and they won't actually be ever losing that energy, and they will never be able to get stable, right? So they want to dissipate that energy into the environment so that they get stability. They get to a lower energy state. So for that, they actually convert the kinetic energy into the heat energy, but there is something that they have to do in order to create this conversion possible. And the molecules know that if they, for example, keep going forever, they keep going forward forever, then a lot of kinetic energy will be, it will keep reducing forever. So the molecules understand that they need to come to a stop in order to stop the process of the creation of kinetic energy in them, right? So they induce a force which is opposite to the direction of the motion, which is opposite to the direction of the motion. They induce a force which will actually make the molecules come to a stop, right? So they actually induce a force which we call the force of friction, right? So force of friction is induced in between these two surfaces in contact, because they want to come to a stop. And this is the law of the physics that universe is following, that they cannot afford to be going in that state forever, because then a lot of energy will keep producing, and molecules will stay in a very highly excited state. They want to lose that energy, and they want to convert that kinetic energy into heat energy. For that, they induce a force of which we call the force of friction, that actually helps that actually acts opposite to the direction of the motion, and helps the box to actually come to a stop. And this force of friction is the main reason that the box decelerates and come to a stop, and then the heat energy that was produced dissipates into the environment, and molecules get back to a stable low energy state. So that is the actual, or the philosophical reason that the force of friction exists. And if this force of friction does not exist, then molecules will keep going on forever. Like for the box will keep sliding forever forward forever, and the molecules will keep getting at a higher and higher energy state. And that's not how the world works, because things, as they get at a higher energy state, they get they disobey the laws of physics and the laws of thermodynamics, which actually tell us that things always want to be at a most stable state, which is the lowest energy level state. If things are at high energy, they are not stable, and they are more susceptible to damage and susceptible to destruction. So that is the reason that things actually follow the laws of physics in order to exist simply, right? So the fact that the world exists is a proof of the force of friction lying around there. So this is the philosophical or the abstract reasoning of the creation of the force of friction. And I hope it helps you understand why actually friction is produced there, and also helps you understand the two of the postulates that we discussed in the previous video, that why friction helps an object to impede its motion, and what is the reason of the production of heat energy in there.